Hi everyone, this is Luxtos, and welcome to my Shadowlands Alpha quick specialization overview. We'll cover 3 different topics. We'll talk about the pros, the cons, but most importantly, how does it feel? And today we're going to take a look at the Unholy Death Knight. Yes, my main, my baby. Let's get started. Alright, so let's start with the pros. What felt good right now in Alpha? What was fun? What did I enjoy? And while the list isn't exceptionally long, there's not that many changes, it's just enough to renew my love to an already almost perfect class for me. I just really love the thematic of the class, and they're just making it even better, and I'm super excited about that. Alright, let's talk about Unholy Blight. Very simple change, but I kind of like it. So instead of being this one single dot that applies to everything around you immediately, it now ramps up and stack in damage. So I thought that was a really cool change. But on top of that, everything affected by Unholy Blight is going to take increased damage from your minions. So that leaves us with an extra cool option, right? Because that's an extra tuning knob if Blizzard wants to increase the damage of your minions, of your ghoul and everything. So it blends really well into that whole summoner necromancer archetype for the Unholy Death Knight. And, I'm a fan of that. I like that. So I think that's a cool and neat change for this talent. Talking about adding more minions to our army, Summon Gargoyle is back. And let me tell you, I'm super excited for this change. I think it plays nicely, it looks good, it's fun to play with, it has some sort of interaction with the rotation, and I'm just really happy this one is coming back. We're not going to have to choose between 2 talents anymore. This one is just straight up in our toolkit. You can use it on every boss or on priority target, and that's going to feel really great. Alright, so now that you got this massive army of the dead, how about we increase its damage? Well, that's what our new mastery is doing. So instead of only being shadow damage, it will now affect our minions. So not only does this increase the number of viable builds for Death Knight, but it's also going to make gearing a lot more simple. Mastery is going to be a lot more versatile, and I think that's really neat, right? Instead of being an only AoE stats, I think you're going to want it for maybe PvP and single target as well, and I think that's a pretty welcome change. Up next, Sudden Doom now affects Epidemic. So that one, very straightforward. It just increased the flow. It makes everything feel better in the AoE rotation. No longer are you going to be sitting on one of those proc, looking at it while you spam Epidemic, and just having it being completely wasted. So I think that's a very cool and welcome change. Super excited about that one as well. Anti-Magic Zone is coming back to our default toolkit, so we no longer have to choose it as a PvP talent. You're going to be able to use this ability everywhere while questing, Mythic Plus, Raid, PvP, and this is a very welcome change, right? Because our unique toolkit and utility pretty much was summed up to grip. Because as Unholy Death Knight, we couldn't use Control Undead because we would lose a bunch of damage from losing our pet. So this feels pretty good because we're going to be able to bring a little bit of defensive cooldown to those Mythic Plus dungeon, especially, for example, on Bursting Week. And in Raid, this is going to be fantastic, being able to reduce 20% incoming magic damage for the whole raid for 10 seconds. So the tuning was brought down from 60% because obviously that would have been way too powerful. So right now on the alpha, it is at 20%. It might change in the future, but right now this brings it a little bit more in line with every other defensive utility that other DPS class are able to bring to the table. So I'm pretty happy about that. I want it to be fair, and I'm just overall really happy to have this ability back. Talking about utilities and defensive cooldowns, we're getting 2 new added to our toolkit. So I wouldn't say new because they're pretty much returning ability, but we're getting Lichborn back. So right now it is a PvP talent that replaces Icebound Fortitude, currently in battle for Azeroth, but in Shadowlands, it's a brand new cooldown, completely independent. It pretty much turns you into an undead, making you immune to fear, sleep, and charm effect, gives you leech. But here's the crazy part. Death Coil is back to its former self. You're now able to use it on undead creature, including yourself, while in that Lichborn state. That also means you can now heal your ghoul back to full whenever it took damage, for example, in PvP situations. And the second one is Sacrificial Pact. So it's pretty straightforward. You sacrifice your ghoul, you make it explode, it does shadow damage to everything around it, and heals you back. So that's pretty crazy considering we're keeping Death Pact as part of our challenge tree. That seems like a lot of healing, but you know what? I'll take it. All right, so now let's talk about the cons. What didn't feel good? What could be improved? There's not necessarily that much, but, you know, there's a couple of things that I think are worth talking about, so let's get right into it. So firstly, I think one of the worst change we got is to Outbreak. So we lost that little short duration debuff that would apply to the main target you cast Outbreak on that was constantly refreshing the disease and attempting to spread it even further. So that kind of feels bad right now because on Alpha, you use it once, it will apply the disease to your main target, and then it will attempt one time to spread it to as many targets as possible, and then that's it. So that means we lose that extra duration from the self-reapplying system, and then it also means that we have to use that ability more often because when new mobs trickle in from waves or maybe tank pulling extra stuff, we have to keep applying Outbreak and we have to keep spreading the disease by constantly using runes. So that feels a little weird compared to the Battle for Azeroth playstyle because you would use disease maybe once or twice in a pull, and that was pretty much it. Every other runes, you were able to use them on your rotation. Now it slows down a little bit the gameplay because not only do you have to reapply it more often because the duration was shortened because it doesn't self-reapply, but also every time something extra gets pulled in, you have to reapply the disease. So you're rune starving a little bit more because of that. So I'm not a fan of that change, but we are still in an early alpha stage. So at this point, anything can happen. We'll just have to wait and see. Next one isn't really a change. Actually, it's a lack of a change. I was honestly expecting Army of the Damned to become baseline. You know, when I read the whole blog post talking about class changes, they were talking about how Unholy was seen as this, you know, summoner of relentless armies of minion and undead creature, and I was really into that. I was like, oh, that sounds amazing. Seems like they want to maybe bring Army of the Damned as a baseline thing, so we get to use Army of the Dead more and not only once per fight, or maybe like twice in a dungeon, right? So that was pretty cool. On top of bringing Magus of the Dead into it, but no, it's still a talent. It's still in the exact same spot. And the only thing is they added Magus to it. So this whole paragraph of information during the blog post was only to tell us that Magus is now into it. So a little bit disappointed about that. I would have really liked to have a shorter cooldown on Army. Apocalypse, I don't mind so much. I mean, Apocalypse fits pretty well into the rotation. 1.5 minute is fine. But still having Army of the Dead on an 8-minute cooldown creates a lot of frustration in dungeon scenario. And finally, I know I just complained about a passive talent, but I do think we have too many abilities in our opener. So obviously, I don't want any of those abilities to go away, and I don't know what the solution is. Maybe removing the global cooldown from some of these abilities, because currently, as it stands, between Army of the Dead, Apocalypse, Disease, Dark Transformation, Unholy Blight, Unholy Frenzy, Gargoyle, Soul Reaper, and after that whole opener, you're just left with absolutely no resources. You're just starved, waiting there for resources to regen back so you can start finally doing your rotation. And I think it feels a little bit slow at the moment. While it's a very short duration, it's a very small portion of a whole fight or a whole dungeon, so it's not a major concern, but I still wanted to list it as some of the things that I think don't feel that great right now and I would maybe like to get fixed. All right, so now that we've listed all the pros and the cons, Lux, does it feel good? Did you have fun playing Death Knight? Should I consider it as a possible main for Shadowlands? Well, obviously, definitely that's a yes for me. Unholy Death Knight feels super good right now. It feels like you're just rotting down everything. Minion feels like they actually have an impact now with your new mastery, and you're just super helpful to your group. I just had a cooldown for every single scenario, whether it was a massive pack of trash, a new boss, do some magical damage to my own group, and I would just anti-magic zone. I could heal myself constantly and just remain alive, and it felt great. Like, throughout all of the testing that I've done, although I've seen some very, very interesting class and specialization right now, I kept wanting to go back to Unholy Death Knight, and I couldn't, right? Because I had to play all of those other spec that I don't play on a regular basis. And like I said, while I discovered some really, really cool gems that you guys are going to see in the next few days, I just wanted to go back on my DK. I just wanted to go back on Holy and just disease and rot down everything and summon my army, right? It felt really, really good. Having Gargoyle back, having anti-magic zone back, I think, to me, feels really, really good right now, because you get a new offensive ability, you get a new defensive ability, you feel that much more useful in group, and it made my whole experience a lot better, I think. It created enough change from Battle for Azeroth to renew my love for this specialization, and that's pretty much all that I was expecting for. Alright, well, that's it for this video. Hope you guys enjoy it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel because we have way more content coming up. We're going to be covering more classes and more specializations in the next few days. You do not want to miss on that. But you know what you don't want to miss on? The amazing community we have on Twitch. Click the link down in the description. Come say hello to us. You won't regret it. We have a really, really nice community. Awesome giveaways, lots of content, lots of fun. All right, well, that's it for me today. My name is Luxtos, and I will see you next time.